on, everybody? Welcome to another video, and thanks for watching. Today I'm out in the middle of nowhere in New Mexico, and I'm driving a 1962 Mercedes Benz 190 SL. So this was one of the first SLs that Mercedes made. Came out in 1955 and was made until 1963. So let's take it for a drive and see what it's like. It's always nice when an old carbureted classic fires right up in the heat of the desert. And I want to say thank you to Caribou Engineering and the owner of the car for letting me review it. It's definitely a very unique car that I'm definitely glad to review it. The last SL I drove, of course, was that 560 SL, the R107 generation. This car was introduced in 1953 alongside the Mercedes 300 SL Gullwing. And the Gullwing, of course, is considered the first supercar that was ever made because of the fact that the performance was beyond anything else you could get at the time, and it was also extremely expensive. So kind of the first, real high-end, almost exotic supercar. That car was based on the 300 Superlight, which was a race car that Mercedes came out with in 1952 that did quite well. It actually came 1-2 in Le Mans. It did well in other races, the Mille Miglia, the Carrera Panamericana in Mexico. And then what happened was Max Hoffman, who was the North American distributor for Mercedes, he saw the 300 Superlight and he said, if you guys make a street-going version of that car, I can probably sell them in the US. And so that was one of the reasons that the 300 SL, they shortened it to SL over Superlight. And that's kind of why one of the reasons that car came to be as a street car, because of the the tubular space frame that the 300 SL had, and then this 215 horsepower inline six, which is a lot of horsepower for the time. It was very expensive and very exotic, and so Mercedes needed something a little more budget oriented, rather than using the 300 SL's tubular space frame. This uses a shortened Mercedes Benz sedan platform, so it's a much more conventional production derived chassis and whatnot, and that meant that Mercedes was able to sell them for a lot cheaper. The 190 SL is powered by a 1.9 liter, which is why it's called the 190. Inline four-cylinder. It has Solex carburetors, whereas the 300 SL had mechanical fuel injection. So this has a more, standard kind of version of fuel delivery. So it's carbureted, and it puts out about 105 horsepower. So not a lot, but definitely enough to get it down the road. You could, in theory, you could daily this car. It's got just enough power to get you around, in traffic. It's not quick by modern standards. It's pretty slow, but it'll get you down the road. So what is this thing like to drive? It's very entertaining, and it has tons of character. The engine revs really nicely. It's got the nice little intake sound from the carbs, and just overall a joy to drive. Very solid. I'm on some really bumpy roads, and the car feels pretty good. It definitely feels of the era. It feels like something from the late 50s, early 60s. The steering has a lot of play in it. All the controls are pretty heavy. You have to really put some effort into driving it. And without power steering, the steering still is pretty heavy. So, it's the clutch is stout but easy to modulate. The brakes, it's got drum brakes all around, and they actually work pretty good. They do all right for what they are. The transmission's very mechanical feeling. It's interesting. The gates are really far apart. Like fourth is way out over here, and then if you downshift to second, it's kind of like down here towards you. So It's definitely got, like I said, a lot of character. The interior, very cool. It's a great example of 50s design. It's got these gigantic gauges in front of you with these nice chrome trim rings. Just overall, a nice design. It's pretty comfortable. Definitely this is a GT car. I mean, that's a sports car, technically speaking, but it's pretty softly sprung. It leans a lot. Styling-wise, it's a really good-looking car. It kind of has certain elements of the 300 SL for obvious reasons. It was supposed to be a less expensive version, but it's got the nice-looking fender blisters. The nose treatment is similar. It doesn't quite have the size or the proportions of the 300 SL Gullwing or the Roadster, but very good-looking car, very charming. And these are not that cheap. I mean, these are definitely going up in value. They range anywhere from $50,000 for a decent driving project on up to 150, 160 grand for something that's concours level. This car is a good driver, so it falls somewhere in between there. It is very cool, and it embodies a lot of style and a lot of sophistication. All right, guys, well, thanks for watching. That's the brief drive in a 190 SL, and we will catch you on the next video.